I haven't heard of Lutherans in Tampa. I've heard plenty of them in here in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that where you are, Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, I'm in Fort Lauderdale.
I've been communicating, I guess, with Tampa, but okay, that's good. So you're familiar with the Lutheran Church. We're in right now involved in participating in a mission development project at our church, and one of the new ministries that we're bringing to the table is social justice and being an arm of advocacy for our LGBTQ community, but we're broadening that also to serve other marginalized populations. And that's why we're interested to see what your organization's involved in and what advocacy you play and not only throughout the state, but specifically in our area. And after your 40-minute or so presentation, we'd like you to allow a question and answer period for us to just see how you might see how churches, specifically maybe ours, can be involved in advocacy and doing social justice ministry within our own context. So that's a real broad brush. I see Kathy's joining us. So I think we're almost into 3-4 minutes, 5 minutes into the hour, and I know your time is valuable. So if you want to go ahead and get started, we'll probably have a couple latecomers, but welcome. Let's give Renee a big round of applause. Thank you for being with us, and you got to keep people tonight. So Renee, if you could go ahead and start.
Okay. As the pastor said, my name is Renee Cantu, and I work for Equality Florida. We are the statewide advocacy organization for the LGBT community. And I'm going to go through a presentation through some slides to kind of give you an overview of the work of Equality Florida. And then once you kind of get a really good understanding of the work that we do, then we can talk about how that might specifically be relevant to what you all are trying to do with your ministry. And I do want to say that kudos to you guys for making the commitment to social justice and to making sure that that people in the community are taken care of, and that injustices are not overlooked, and that people are valued for who they are and what they believe and what they bring to the table, because we are as rich as the diversity of the folks that we have around us. So I applaud you and I congratulate you. So I'm going to share my screen and let's see if we can get this working right. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
So I'm one of those guys that has to have a gazillion screens in front of him. So if at any point I'm not looking directly at you, I'm not that shifty kind of guy. I'm just trying to maneuver and navigate my multiple screens here. Yes, I am with Equality Florida. I am the business outreach manager. And part of the work that I do specifically is to engage with the business community in ways that will help us to, in areas of advocacy, in areas of moving the needle on certain issues, and even serving as a resource for the corporate and business community when it comes to when they're dealing with LGBT issues, to help them through policy work or through creating a culture that is welcoming and inclusive of the LGBT folks in their workplace. I am originally from South Texas, so if at any point I use the word y'all in a very drawn kind of way, I apologize if I offend anyone, but really it's okay. For me, y'all means everybody. So, and then one of the other programs that I manage is called Open Doors, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little further into the presentation. So first, Equality Florida. Who are we? Equality Florida, as I mentioned, is the statewide advocacy organization. We are the largest civil rights organization dedicated to securing full equality for Florida's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community. How do we do that? What do we do? We work through education, we do grassroots organizing, build coalitions, and we lobby. Through all those efforts, we are working to really change Florida and to make sure that no one suffers harassment or discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. A couple of program areas that I'd like to kind of describe to you, and some areas where we focus a lot of our work. The first is in advocacy. And when I say advocacy, it's basically being that sounding board, being that watchdog for government in terms of making sure that anything that is put in place is meant to protect the LGBT community. And that sometimes involves us doing some lobbying and work at the state level in Tallahassee. But it also includes us doing some work at the local level when it comes to LGBT protections that are at the city, municipal, or the county level. We've worked really hard to make sure that those protections are in place so that no one from the LGBT community could be discriminated against. One of the things that we've been working on for many years is having the state of Florida have statewide protections for the LGBT community. And when that was not the case, when we were not protected, we felt it was necessary even to kind of trickle that down and work at the local level and work with municipal and county governments. Recently, there was a decision that came down from the Supreme Court, basically that said that LGBT people are protected under Title VII protections in federal law. And what the challenge was after that was to figure out how that was going to be trickled down and interpreted at the state level, at the local level. And what was decided specifically for the state of Florida through the work of the Florida Commission for Human Relations, they have decided that they will be implementing and enforcing those protections for the state of Florida. So basically those rights and protections that we've been working for over 12 years with the state legislature basically happened. So we are now a protected class in the state of Florida, and we're really excited about that. It was huge news, and it just happened a few weeks ago. So that's kind of the level of work that we've been kind of working on and monitoring and just kind of keeping all of our folks informed so that they know what their rights are and they know what protections are in place for members of our community. We have a transgender equality program, and basically that is an opportunity for us to raise awareness and to be advocates for the transgender community in terms of providing those protections and making sure those protections are being enforced. We have our transgender equality program. One of the biggest parts of it is having educational programs and training programs that allows us to go to companies, to go to sheriff's departments, to go to city government, and really provide some cultural competency training for people so that they understand how to navigate issues with the transgender community. We also have that group that is focused on the advocacy part of it. As you may know, recently, in the last couple of years, there has been a high incidence of transgender women, particularly transgender women of color who have been murdered and specifically targeted because they are transgender and because they are women of color. We think that's appalling, obviously. We want to find a way to reduce that from happening. So that's why we are out talking to sheriff's departments, talking to police departments, to make sure that they understand that it's a real issue. It's a real problem, and it's something that needs to have a special eye on, as we kind of try to bring folks to justice, but also try to protect that class of individuals. We have a Safer Schools program. This allows our staff to work with school administrators, teachers, counselors, anyone that works in the schools, in the public schools, and in some of the private schools as well, to give them the cultural competency that they need to be strong and powerful allies for our LGBT youth. We know that there's a higher rate of suicide attempts, a higher rate of depression, a higher rate of issues when it comes to the LGBT community at the school level. We want to make sure that our teachers and our administrators recognize those issues and are aware of them so that they can navigate and they can be good allies for those youth. We also give them the resources that they need to be able to work with the kids to develop gay and straight alliance groups at the high school level, at the junior high level, even some at the elementary school level, because our kids are actually starting to come out earlier and earlier as we move along. So that we're really proud of that program. We are in 64 of the 67 school districts, and we're able to accomplish that in a matter of about 3 years. The numbers of teachers and administrators that we have trained across the state is pretty amazing. So very proud of the program. So we have our field operations, basically that allows us to recruit volunteers to do work at the local level, at the state level, in advocacy, in representation, in education programs, in awareness programs. For example, when we're able to have in-person Pride festivals again, we'll have folks that are staffing our booths and that are there to answer questions or allow people to get involved. So that's a great part of it. Equality Means Business is one of the programs that I get to manage. And I'm super excited about the work that I do there because basically it gives me an opportunity to interact with folks that are in the business community, whether it's from large corporations or small business, to really talk about the importance of being welcoming and inclusive in their workplace, but then also creating that welcoming space and that safe space for their customers, for their workers, and to be good stewards of the business community when it comes to providing protections and to being good citizens in terms of doing the right thing. And some of you may have heard of a Supreme Court case where there was a baker that decided he did not want to make a cake for a same-sex couple for their wedding. So that this is part of the reason that we've created Equality Means Business. And we also created a program called Open Doors. Equality Means Business is more for the larger employers in the state of Florida, and it's a way that we recognize those companies so that people outside of Florida will know that Florida, though we're a more conservative state, we do offer, or we do have companies that have policies in place that protect their internal staff, that have policies in place that want to be welcoming to the LGBT community. Open Doors is our opportunity to take merchants, small business owners, mom and pop shops, restaurants, and say, these are the businesses that will not discriminate against you because you are part of the LGBT community. So through Open Doors, we created an online directory where those businesses can get listed. And you can search the directory. It's online and it's available for anyone that has access to the internet. And I'll talk a little bit more about that because there's some more details about that that are important for you to know. A few years ago, going almost 5 years, my goodness, You may remember that there was a mass shooting at Pulse nightclub in Orlando. Um, One of the reasons that I'm bringing this up is that I think, number one, it's kind of timely because of what has happened, what just happened yesterday. But it always kind of brings us back to the things that we learned from what happened at Pulse, and that's that things can just go south really quickly, and the response that we were able to have for Pulse was pretty amazing. It was amazing to see, because the community response at the local level and the international level was pretty amazing. On the morning of June 12th, 2016, I was not working with Equality Florida, but I understand that our staff was scrambling because, as you know, we're all kind of located all across the state. So everybody wanted to make sure that everybody on staff was safe and secure, and accounted for. And then once we did that, then it was time to start kind of healing the communities, because it was devastating. So we took charge and started a GoFundMe page, and we were able to raise, when all was said and done, over $9.5 million. And that money came from companies, from individuals, from the state of Florida, from all over the world, really. And we created some online resources for the families and for those that were in need of the healing part of it. There were vigils that were being done all over the world. Then we created. It was great to see that part of it, but then to see how people wanted to really engage and to help the healing part. We created the hashtag of hashtag for the 49, and it just went viral. I mean, it was ridiculously crazy, and people were responding with love, with just offers to help and trying to find ways that they can help with the healing. And then in subsequent years, we created a hashtag called Honor Them with Action, and I'm going to show you a quick, well, I was just saying, our campaigns after the first year really became more about what are you going to do that will allow, that will help you honor them with action. So this is the hashtag that we now use every year. And basically we ask people to do something good for their community, to do something good that that will make a difference, that will make a difference to one person, that will make a difference to a small group of people. And tell us about it. And when you tell us about it, use the hashtag Honor Them with Action, because that's really a way of creating an incredible tribute to the memory of the 49 folks that we lost. I'm going to show you a quick video. Hopefully you'll be able to hear the audio on it. If you can, please let me know, and I'll see if we can figure it out here.
It's going like crazy. It's caught holes and dead people everywhere. They're shooting.
June 12, 2016 changed everything. In a matter of hours, Orlando just wasn't the same anymore. We were broken. I was broken. I went from feeling free with my best friends to facing the reality of life without them. The attack on Pulse nightclub, the worst against the LGBTQ community in US history, left us wondering if we would ever heal or remain a city broken by terror and hate. But what happened next was remarkable. Without blinking, Orlando did exactly what we knew it could. We became Orlando Strong. Lines stretched for blocks as people waited to donate blood. Donations flooded in. Community voices joined in unison to reject fear and violence. At the center of those efforts, Equality Florida. We convened community leaders from across Central Florida to ensure that love, not fear, united us. In those early hours, we made two promises. The first is that we would always take care of the survivors and families from Pulse. We broke GoFundMe records, raising $9.5 million, with every single penny going to those who are impacted. And then we got started on our second promise, to honor them with action. Pulse changed how we view the fight for equality. To uproot hate, we have to create a culture of inclusion. Our schools need to reflect that. Our communities need to reflect that. And it is action, not words, that will move us forward. Although we've made a ton of progress, we have to ensure that all the work we do is focused on the well-being of our youth. We live in dangerous times. The trans community is under attack. LGBTQ rights hang in the balance. Gun violence plagues our streets. I know, sometimes it feels like the odds are stacked against us. I learned something on June 12, 2016. And that is, we can never be victims because we've always been warriors. Every single one of us is faced with a choice. We can allow fear and hate to overcome us, or we can stand up and fight for what's right. It is action, not words, that move us forward. And the ones we've lost too soon deserve exactly that, action. I swore I would never stop fighting for my best friends. I would always honor them with courage, honor them with strength, and honor them with action. I hope you'll join me.
And just a quick side note, the gentleman in the video, Brandon, is now one of my colleagues and works for Equality Florida out of the Orlando area. And he's brilliant. In fact, he was actually just on the Joy Reid show before we came on the air. So our commitment is strong, and our commitment remains as powerful as it was on that. Just want to talk a little bit more about the work that I've been doing with the business community. I mentioned before the Equality Means Business program, and I talked about how it focuses more on the larger employers in the state of Florida. These are the folks that are currently part of that program. So to give you an idea of how connected we've really worked on becoming, so that we can hopefully get some stuff done and utilize the collective voice of the business community to move mountains. And then real quickly on the open doors, and I really wanted to make sure that I covered this because this presents an opportunity for you all to potentially engage with this. As I mentioned before, it's an online directory of businesses that are equality friendly, and this is statewide. I encourage you to check it out. It is accessible online. It is bilingual and can actually, we've upgraded the site so that now you can translate it into any language, which is kind of exciting. It's searchable by location and business category. It is smartphone friendly. We currently have about 2,000 companies listed. And the challenge that we've got right now is that because of COVID, we realize that there are probably going to be some businesses that are listed that have closed or that are no longer in business. So we're hoping to do that research, and we're asking for folks that use the site that if they see a business that they know that is closed, to just send us a quick note, because it's only as current as our users help us make it current. So there's that. You basically would set up a user ID, and you can actually list multiple locations of a business, or you can list multiple businesses. And all the businesses, as they're being set up on the site, must pledge equality, friendliness, during the setup. And we currently have our system as a complimentary service to list your company until we come out of the COVID restrictions. So that we used to charge for to kind of help to keep the site up, but because of COVID, we decided to waive that fee. And now, as we're coming out of it safely, we'll probably go back to that. But I'm not sure exactly when at this point. So some opportunities that are available for you to become involved with Equality Florida, based on what you've heard today and based on the things that might interest you. We are currently totally virtual. We are not doing any in-person events until probably later in the summer, maybe even into the fall. But it presents an opportunity for anyone who has access to a computer to attend our events. And we usually do events that involve some type of advocacy or some type of educational component that make it really interesting, and some where we have some entertainment. So that's always fun to do those events. But as I mentioned, we will be going back to live events. And we typically host live events all over the state. And just so you know, we do have a live event in Broward, and we have one in Miami. The one in Broward will likely be happening this November. So so keep your antennas up. We do have some volunteer opportunities in terms of some advocacy work, in terms of if you're interested in some election work. And we might have some opportunities with our Pride festivals once we get back into the real world, or the in-person world. There may be some opportunities that come up with our Safe and Healthy Schools program. And then our election programs that happen during the election season. If you are affiliated in any way with one of the larger employers in the state of Florida, we invite you to look into potentially getting the company involved and engaged with Equality Means Business. If you own a small business, I would encourage you to get your business listed on the Open Doors directory. Or you can help us to recruit new businesses that you know are equality friendly and that need to be on that directory. Help us to recruit them and get them on there. And then I'll close with a big thank you for the opportunity to touch base with you. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much. And thank you for your commitment to equality through the work that you're doing, through your ministry, and through this project and initiative that I'm really happy to be a part of. For more information, you can go to equalityflorida.org. Our Equality Means Business program is at equalitymeansbusiness.org. And the Open Doors directory, you can find it at opendoorsflorida.org. And with that, I will unshare my screen.
Thank you, Renee. I certainly appreciate the information. And have you been working, by the way, with Pastor Bill Knott at all in Fort Lauderdale, former dean of the Broward Bahamas Conference with the Lutheran Church? Does the name sound right?
No.
He's been involved in, his church has been involved in the Pride Festival on an annual basis in Fort Lauderdale. But, you know, I've attended those meetings, so I'm aware of that. Could you give us an idea, any church groups that you're presently working with, and what any church groups that are involved, what they have done to join you in this effort? Or what opportunities do you see would be available specifically, especially beginning our social justice ministry, specifically for a lot of the things that you advocate for?
The work that I do is so focused on the business community that I don't have those connections. But I do know that we have a strong contingency of folks that are coming from the faith community that have been a part of the work that we've been doing, or that we've done in Tallahassee. I know that there's a few of the pastors that are pretty active, especially like with our lobby days program. And then there is a coalition of pro-equality faith organizations that is, I believe, statewide that we have some communication with at the state level. Our chief lobbying guru guy, John Harris Maurer, is based in Tallahassee, and he's got those connections up there. So he would have a better idea of the organizations that we work directly with.
Okay, so maybe you could email that information to me and then I can make contact with them if that's possible.
Sure.
Why don't we open it up to the rest of the people who are attending tonight? Maybe they would be able, hey, Dr. Johnson, good to see you tonight.
I had a quick
Yes, you're muted.
question. Oh, can I have a quick question. I think there's two bills right now in Florida. One about, I think it's HB 241, and the other one's like an anti-trans youth athlete ban. Is there something we can do with that, like postcard or letter writing campaigns that you're aware of that your organization might be working on right now?
Yeah, so there are two bills right now that we're really kind of watching. One more than another. There is one that is that would create a ban on trans kids playing sports at all levels. We think it's just a bad bill. It's horribly just goes against our desire to allow our trans kids to grow up in a normal environment, being able to do all the normal stuff that that the rest of the kids are doing. There have not been any incidents or instances in which this has become a problem in any part of the state. And the individual who is sponsoring the bill has actually said that publicly. Yet they continue to push this for this bill. So one of the things that we're doing is we have seen it go to committee, to its first committee at the House side, and it had its first hearing on the Senate side today. I know that it passed on the House side. I'm pretty sure it probably did pass on the Senate side too, but it's not. It still has a few more other committee levels to go to. One of the things that I would encourage your ministry to do and your volunteers is to reach out to folks that are on in the legislature. If you have any relationships with any of the senators or any of the representatives, state reps, especially if they're on the Republican side, because it seems that there is a lot of support for that bill on the Republican side. So if you know any folks that might be able to change that current for us, we would appreciate any work that you could do. The other bill, and from what I understand, it has a bill on the House side, but it doesn't have a companion bill on the Senate side. It's still kind of out there, and it's concerning in the sense that it's creating more for people to talk about that is anti-transgender, and that's the bill that would make it illegal for a doctor to treat a trans individual or trans kid. I mean, last time around, it didn't go very far in the legislature. This time around, it doesn't have a Senate companion, but they're still talking about it and they're still introducing it. And it creates this whole demonization of that community, which puts them more in danger of discrimination, of harassment, of the trans murders that we've seen happen in the last couple of years. So anything that you could do to help us to to make trans folk more protected and to help them kind of deal with some of the stuff, because it could get really bad.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you
By the
have-
way, if you would like to take a look at all of the bills that we are monitoring, they are available on our website, and I can actually put the link in the chat so you can take a look at that.
Thank you. I had a question just on the listing in the open doors. Are you aware of any churches that are listed in there? I mean, we're not we're not a business per se, but we're certainly a public, in public facing institution with open doors. And I'm just wondering if there are any listings.
There are, and I would absolutely welcome the church to become a part of that. I mean, it's businesses, but it's organizations. It's service providers. It is nonprofits. Yes, by all means, please, if you can put somebody in charge of doing that, just go to opendoorsflorida.org, set up a username, and then enter it as though it were a business, because it says business on the website. But definitely get listed, because it's great for us to have a resource of faith-based organizations that are welcome, or that are welcoming and inclusive of the LGBT community. So that great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Renee, one of the things I think we're looking at too is having extending a welcome in ways that we possibly can to the LGBT community for worship, but also maybe for support groups, not only for the LGBT community themselves, but for their families that are looking for support and understanding for assimilating to those who have come out. And sometimes that's difficult for family. I also like the idea that William brought up about advocacy opportunities.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd also recommend that you visit the Equality Florida site and sign up for to receive some of the emails that we send out. So I am putting the full slate of 2021 legislative priorities and legislative things. And it talks about those that we oppose, those that we're kind of watching, and those that we're pushing for passage.
What are some of the immediate needs that you see on the ground level? I know you're not completely familiar with the church outreach piece, but in terms of just what you see in the community for organizations who want to support the needs of the community for this advocacy, what do you see as the primary needs right now, or the needs for priority for addressing?
I think one way that would be great is there's so much talk, and there's so much in the news, there's so much in politics, there's so much that's going on that has really put the religious community in a not so positive all the time light. I think this project that you're doing is amazing. I think that the more that people know that you are that you're interested in this type of ministry and interested in being that place where people can go, where you are a safe space, I think can go a long way. I think that's a great message to put out in the community. And you know, the more people hear about it, the more you're going to get some good feedback. And you know, go out when you get a chance to pride festivals, and you know, demonstrate that your ministry is open to folks that are part of the LGBT community. I think that's the biggest thing that you guys can do, as a faith-based organization, for us. Because honestly, I mean, I grew up Catholic, and Latino. um, so the messages that I was always getting growing up were about, you know, Catholicism and the importance of, you know, following, you know, the strict guidelines, and being gay was not one of the showcasing opportunities as that were part of our church. So there's a lot of baggage that I tend to carry around with me about the church. And the more I hear about projects like what you're doing, the more I get to talk to you about what it means to be of faith, and what it means to be giving and of a religious faith-based organization, and how positive that is. The more you're helping to change somebody like me. So.
Yeah, I know the Roman Catholic. I was brought up, my mother's side of the family was Catholic and my father was Lutheran. I ended up becoming Lutheran so I could marry if I went to the priesthood. Here I am Lutheran, I never got married. But that's another story. But you know, the Roman Catholic churches came out recently because of their, they actually went on record now, the Pope coming out and saying it's sin, you know, and they can't sanction it. And there's a lot of repercussions of that. And I know there's been a group in the Roman Catholic and the Anglican Church for a long time called Dignity. Have you heard of that? And Integrity, that is advocating, but you know, the Roman Church is so institutionalized in terms of doctrine and what comes down from the Pope. But what's interesting in the Lutheran Church, specifically the ELCA, they have an associated group called Reconciling Works, which we're a Reconciling Works congregation. And it's an advocacy group within the church itself that helps us stand with other Lutheran churches, not only throughout the synod, but nationally and internationally to advocate for the LGBTQ community. So I know we've been you know, joining with them and finding new ways and becoming more involved. But I think at this point, you know, we're at the beginning. We want to find tangible ways to connect with the community and advocate for the community, because I know for a fact there are people out there that are hurting, that are needing of spiritual support, whatever that may be. You're right, the church has not always been the opening door, literally, for that community. We have to do more than just put a banner outside our doors to say you're welcome. You know, we words are one thing, but action's another.
Yeah, and it's great that you say that, because I'm on the board of the Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, and one of the things that we have talked about is when all the racial injustice or racial equity sort of bubbled up. You know, we created a council within the chamber, excuse me, that was specifically to address racial equity issues. And I'm in addition to the gay and lesbian part of the council, or part of the chamber. But one of the things that I'm advocating for is just like what you just said. You know, we can wave the flag of equity, you know, as much as we can. When it comes to it, as a business organization, what are you doing in terms of program being welcoming to Black business owners, Latino business owners, LGBT business owners, that would want, or that would make those individuals want to be a part of your organization, want to come to utilize your services. So there's a little bit of dialogue going on about that, because at the end of the day, you don't want it to be just a token reaction to something that was happening in the world. You really want for there to be for you to make a difference. Interestingly, I'm one of the things that I'm going to be pushing for is not just creating programs, but creating an advocacy portion of it. And if I'm getting too political, I apologize in advance, but there are bills that are being introduced now that will suppress the vote for Black Latinos. They may say that that's not the intention, but when you break it down, that's really what is going to happen. So I think that a chamber of commerce, a business organization, would do so much good if they say, look, our racial equity efforts are not just going to be about providing a training program for Black-owned businesses. We also think that it is wrong to advocate for voter suppression that is happening at the state level, at the national level. We'll see what happens.
Yes, so much has become politicized. William, is Laurie still tuned in?
She
Is-
had to
is Laurie-
take a call from our son who's off and we don't get to talk to him. So she had to take a call from Maine.
Okay, Laurie, William's wife, is very involved in advocacy and in terms of being working with a lot of this in terms of the voting and that kind of thing. I would like to get her take on some of this, but let's open it up to anybody else who has a question. Dr. J, Kathy, Raul, anybody want to ask? Evelyn, you're there. I know you have some questions, don't you, Evelyn?
Well, I'm just excited to hear this tonight. It's wonderful. There's a, I think all these wonderful questions really were helpful so far. And I would just have the same kinds of things like what are some ways that our faith organizations can bridge that gap that is in some ways widening with marginalized communities here in South Florida, and you've spoken to that, a bit. And I guess there are some other organizations here in Miami-Dade County, and I was curious the ways in which we might I don't know, the ways in which maybe your organization interacts with like Save Dade or
We have
I know there's a
Yeah,
few
we
more,
have
but
we have great relationships with Save. In fact, there's some statewide initiatives that we've worked on with them in the past, and they are now Save, period, not just Save Dade. I mean, their advocacy arm is really
Cool.
covering the entire state of Florida. I mean, and they do lobbying like we do in Tallahassee. There's Pride Lines, which is in Miami-Dade. They have, they're like a community center, really. And they have programs for youth. They have programs for the transgender community. They have LGBT focus groups and counseling groups. There may be an opportunity for you to reach out to them to see if there's ways that you can partner, or if you can even provide volunteers for some of their programs. So there's that. Are there any cyclists in the room? Cycling? No. There's also an organization called Smart Ride, which is, and I do it. This will be the fourth year that I get to do it. We basically raise money for AIDS organizations across the state of Florida. And the way that we do it is we cycle from Miami all the way down to Key West.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
And it's done over 2 days. And the last in-person event that we did was not this last year, but the year before. We raised about $1.2 million. And this last year, because of the pandemic, there were a lot of folks that were just not able to participate, but we were able to raise just over $700,000, which during a pandemic was pretty amazing. But that's an opportunity if any of your folks are avid cyclists or want to create a team. That's a fun way to do it. Who else is in the Dade area? I know there's an office of the Latino Salud, which focuses on. It initially started a focus on the younger Latinos, but they are providing services now, AIDS-related services and counseling, and to the general population of the LGBT community. And then of course there's Pride, which I believe is scheduled to happen in person this year, but I don't have full confirmation yet. But either way, with Pride festivals, we will be out there. We'll have some presence there. So.
I know one of the exciting things that we're moving on at St. Mark's, we're making the move from being on the sidelines to being out there doing things. And that's part of the whole mission development emphasis, which is really something we're receiving support from the Synod. But I do truly believe, and I hear you say that in terms of your organization itself, but when you actually are doing more than just talking, but you're doing, you actually, it helps the organization itself, because people tend to support those things where they see they're making a difference. And, I think sometimes the church has assumed that I category where we wait for everything to come to us, but really church is about going out into the community and making God known to the world. And so it means changing the, I don't know, the picture, so to speak, the way we've operated in the past. And of course, this pandemic has put a big cloud over how we do business, even as the church, as well as everything else. So it's a time of transition, challenging time, but maybe it's a good thing, because like you say, many people have learned now to participate through Zoom as a start. That can give a new beginning to a lot of things. So.
Yeah, and once we're able to get out and do in-person events, one of the things that I love the most when I do stuff like this, we were in person. It's a great opportunity to start building relationships with new people, getting to know people, finding out where they're from, what they think about. I mean, we are a diverse population within the LGBT community, and then around the LGBT community. And I'm always excited to learn about where people come from and what they think and how they interact with people.
Right.
So I guess it's the South Texas boy in me.
I have just one quick question for you, and it's not directly on our church or the church's participation, but it strikes me that given Florida's population and demographic, and particularly Miami Beach and Key West, and now the influx of people from New York and California, are anti-gay and anti-trans policies good government and good for the people of Florida? I mean, isn't this just inviting the kind of business negative reaction that we've seen in Georgia with the voting rights thing? Aren't we just asking for it if we pass this kind of stuff?
Yeah, we really are. I mean, if we get to a point where this sports ban, for example, is going to move forward and it's going to the governor's office, and we know that the governor is going to sign it into law, that's when the real wheels are going to start turning. Because you're right. I mean, there is such a movement against that type of thinking. There are so many more people in Florida who believe that our values are much better than what those laws are saying that we are. You have to understand that what's happening with all this anti-trans legislation, this is a national coordinated effort to to marginalize the trans community. If you look at the over 23 states that are also introducing the same type of legislation, the language that they're using is exactly the same. The research that they are citing is exactly the same. And it's exactly the portion of the research that they are citing, which, by the way, the researcher that put the research together has come after these folks for pulling out of context information from that report that does not reflect the final outcomes of what the researcher is advocating for. In fact, the researcher has basically said that bans on these types of bans on sports should not be in place. So yeah, you're right. It is a good point. But we're dealing with a bigger issue in terms of how coordinated this effort is. And to be honest, and I apologize if there are any folks in the room who are on the other side of the political fence than what I am. But it really doesn't help that Trump is right down the street from where we are. Because I do believe that he still has a stronghold, and his values and what he brought to his presidency is still kind of a part of what's managing the laws in Tallahassee.
I don't think that's an understatement at all. And I think at least most people tuning in tonight really understand that. And we're all concerned about that because not only, well, let me put it this way, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I respect that, but we're living in an age now where respecting each other's opinion and reciprocity and respect, it just seems like it's no more. Everything has become so politicized that whether you were for something or you worked for something, now if you're on this side of the political spectrum, you automatically go with everything. And then, like you say, it's selected research. You know, I know a little bit about research. I had to write a thesis, and you know, the way they pick and pull it, it's not contextual sometimes. You know, I don't know whether they just piecemeal things together, but I find it hard to find any of this research that they're citing to be qualitative or quantitative in nature. It just seems pick and pull would place well on TV or the political commercials. So yeah, I think our work is cut out for us. It truly is. I know we're coming to the end of the hour. Would somebody else like to share a comment or add anything?
I would like to just say thank you to you and to the organization for the help that you have given the schools in handling young people who are going through transitions. And as a school administrator, just retired, I had a couple of occasions where we were reaching out to a youngster and helping the family, and to have the kind of support and direction that we got from our district through Equality Florida and other organizations that helped us put together a whole plan meant the world to us in helping to make it as smooth and as painless for that youngster as possible. And very detailed work, things that you don't think about until you have someone that is in that situation. And I just commend you, because it really helped us help that youngster. And it's one of the things that I remember most fondly in my career was our ability to help in those instances as a family and a youngster was transitioning. So thank you.
Now, were you school district in Dade?
Miami-Dade County, yes, a principal down here in Miami-Dade County.
Okay, nice. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And I will definitely pass that message on to our Safe and Healthy Schools staff. And it's pretty amazing to so we have an annual conference of all the administrators to come together. And one of the things, or two of the things, one is that as part of that conference is a panel of our superintendents that give their feedback on what they're seeing. But then the most impactful one is when we have a panel of actual students that have been affected by the programs.
Wow.
We have the kids up there with their mom or with their parents that tell the story, and the stories are so, not a dry eye in the room, really. So it's wonderful to be a part of an organization that has that kind of impact in the community, and I'm glad that the kids are. I say kids. I don't mean to be belittle the little rascals, but they are pretty special, and it's great to see that they are getting through what could be a very tough time in a much more positive way.
Thank you.
Yeah, Renee, I continue to work with Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I'm still a school counselor for the remaining of this year, and I enjoy the work that you continue to support with the school system. In closing, I just want to thank everybody, especially you, Renee, for being here tonight. We need to work on more tangible ways that we can put together some, things that we can do strategically in the community, but this was certainly a valuable conversation. I'm also thinking about, this past week, a couple of days ago, what happened in Colorado. These kind of things, the context is sometimes different. The motivation perhaps changes, of course, but it shows you this is what's alive in our nation right now. And we either do something to work towards resolve, or we don't do anything. And I think there's a mission here for all of us. And I thank you for what you're doing for the community. I want to thank each one who participated tonight. This is a very valuable conversation. I hope that we can light a fire under each one that has tuned in, as well as all those who are yet to tune in to this ministry and what's coming. Thank you, Renee, from the bottom of our hearts. God bless you. And I would appreciate you sending me whatever website information, contacts, the person who is working with churches in the South Florida area, anything you can, because I think we would like to become partners with you in this process. Anybody else want to say anything for the good of the cause tonight? Let's give Renee another big round of applause.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight, and our prayers continue to be with you. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you,
Welcome
everybody.
to the work.